Thank you so much, Mayong Buntag. Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Uh, the title of my presentation, Promoting Innovation Through Human Capital Development. And I think the subject of decision this morning, transforming education, to me, there are several dimensions to transform education. We want to transform education because we wanted to widen access to education, but not just access, widen access to quality education. We wanted to develop critical thinkers and productive citizens in the country. We wanted to truly develop the human capital in the country. Very necessary for us to develop that spirit of innovation, necessary and critical for this country to grow economically. What I was saying, what I'm just mentioned earlier, is captured in this diagram, in this model. The first slides, these are the providers of education and training. The state universities and colleges, the local universities and colleges, the private HEIs or the private higher education institutions, others, all those others that provides training that we cannot classify any of that. We are saying the quality of education and training depends on the quality of these providers. And therefore, the kind and the level, the state of human capital in the country also depends on the kind of education and training that we're providing. This is basically providing the link between, well, the state, the level of the economic and socio-development of the country, and the state, the level of quality of the education providers, the state universities and colleges, and so on and so forth. And we can summarize what I was just mentioning in these key arguments. Number one, human capital is developed through quality education. Innovation thrives on the quality of human capital, and innovation propels economic development. This is basically the link between education providers, the institutions, and the socio-economic development of the country. In higher education, well, in education, basically, and in particular in higher education, we have three functions, mandated functions: research, instruction, and extension. And these are the functions that help where our expertise are necessary, and in the process, able to contribute the socioeconomic development. The flow of my presentation is outlined as follows. The first few slides, I would be presenting to you some statistics, both structural, statistics that would probably explain us why we have this level of the quality of education in the country. And in the second, just one slide, and the second part this is my advocacy on how the state universities and colleges in the country should perform their roles in higher education vis-a-vis the private higher education institutions. And the last one, just some philosophical shift just to contribute on how we can possibly introduce those reforms so that this learning process of our students can be enhanced. Well, let's start on this trifocalization. Well, the passage of this law in 1994 and 1997. As we are all aware, we used to be one huge department, the Ministry of Education, and it was trifocalized sometime in 1994. And with the creation of the Commission on Higher Education, the argument that time was so huge that higher education, no agency is focusing on that. So we have one agency looking at the higher education, one agency looking at the basic education, and one in vocational education. There are pros and cons on this. Well, one main advantage to this is that agencies so focus and dedicate your attention and energy on developing that sector. The disadvantage, I would say, and I think it has demonstrated when we implemented the Key to 12. When these agencies are not talking to each other, and look at education is one spectrum, one line. The product, the input of the higher education is the product of basic education. It's not possible that these agencies should not be talking. They should be closely talking to each other so that we can come up with an education system that is truly and reflective of our dreams and aspirations. This is the one disadvantage of that. Let's look at the, the distribution of higher education in the country. There are about 2,000 higher education institutions in the country. 12% public institutions, 88% private institutions. But if you look at the distribution, this one is excluding the satellite campuses. There are main campuses in the HUCs, and there are several satellite campuses. 12% and 88%. But if we look at the student distribution, it's basically the same, about 41 to 59%, but this one rose to about, lately, from 1.4, the last figure last year, because this was in 2015, 1.6 million student population in the public HEIs. And how the HEIs are distributed in the country. These are the distribution, the public in red and the private in blue. There's no yellow in the, I'm just joking. But if you look at, there are several higher education institutions in the country. These are the distribution. But if you look at, despite across the 17 regions, there are about 223 public HEIs. If you include satellite campuses, more than 600. Private HEIs, 1,700. But access to education remains a problem. Out of 100 students entering grade 1, only 14% able to finish college. So just imagine how huge the problem if you talk about access to education. Well, there are several reasons for this, and I'm sure poverty is one and foremost in one of those many reasons. Out of that 14%, only 17% of that are into STEAM, or science, technology, engineering, agriculture, and mathematics. And why STEAM? According to the National Science Foundation, in the 21st century, scientific and technological innovations have become increasingly important as we face the benefits and challenges of both globalization and knowledge-based economy. To succeed in this new information-based and highly technological society, students need to develop their capabilities in STEM: science, technology, engineering, mathematics. I just added agriculture in the first slide, the previous slide, to level much beyond what was considered acceptable in the past. Well, it has been proven time and again, many countries have been talking about it, how critical and important science and technology in the country. And there are only very few enrolling in that areas. And who are the main providers of science and technology? This is an old data, but it doesn't change that much. If you look at in this slide, the public HEIs, the state universities and colleges are the greatest or the main producers or, providing programs on science, technology, engineering, agriculture, and mathematics. Now, but let's look at the budget. This is a trend. This is I gathered. Every year, I'm the one presenting the budget of the 112 state universities and colleges in Congress and in the Senate. And these are the figures that we consolidate. This is in nominal value, but if you look at actually in real terms, the budget is actually decreasing. There is one advantage of the DAP. the disbursement acceleration program. If you look at from 2000, and that's very much the same, 10 years earlier, the budget never changed. But because of that, well, there's that increase. Let's look at the per capita. The per capita is about 20,000. It's decreasing. The highest is about 130,000. The lowest is 6,000. Huge variance in the per capita. And there are about 67% or 76 SUCs below the per capita, average per capita. Let's look at the innovation, and I have to accelerate further because the 3 minutes slide sign is there up. Let's look at where we rank last in the per capita budget. We rank also number 9. We rank number 9. Let's look at our ranking innovation. This is an old data, but this is a good thing to see. This is 2011 data. We're number 8, and we're happy that Myanmar doesn't have the data because otherwise it would be number 9. And these are the issues in building human capital. In higher education, issues is competing with other issues. Issues is competing with private issues. Issues is with a mandate on STEAM, venturing on other programs in the hope that we would be able to generate some income. This is issue budget related. This is my advocacy that we have to look at education or higher education for that matter as one single entity. We should not be looking at that public, private. Otherwise, we would not be able to complement each other. I'm proposing that in the light, this afternoon, there is this budget consolidation of the bill on free education, and we are worried about this. How sustainable this can? Well, throughout the world, budgets are now really, the government is shifting that to, in other words, it's not going to be sustainable. What we are proposing here, issues should focus on the mandate. The government should give the funds necessary that needs. It should not compete with the private institutions. It should complement with the private HEIs. In other words, we can differentiate both the kind of students and the curricular offerings. Well, this is the last slide. That's why I'm not worried of the 1 minute left. This is the last slide. What I'm just saying, what also factors on how our students think. We are so heavily regulated. Higher education to me, curriculum should not be a matter of regulation. Curriculum is a faculty matter. That is where innovation can come in. And if you keep on regulating, and that's the kind also of education that you are giving to your students. These are just some philosophical shifts that we need to do. After the structural reform, we can do some reform in the classrooms to effect the change that we want to make. Thank you. Mayong buntag. Maraming salamat sa ating lahat.